guests and members here. This is the meeting for April 5th, 2023. First order of business is approval of the minutes that are in your packet. Had a chance to review those. Any questions, concerns? Motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to
Second.
approve.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. We have anything to report, Tim?
Nope, I don't. Thanks.
Liz?
No.
Yeah, or Bruce? Larry? Yeah? Got too many Bruces there. Bruce is in the same road there. I have a couple things, but we'll get our meeting going, and I'll go over them.
Okay.
Any unfinished business, Chad, anything to?
No.
All right, let's move right to, we'll get Artie and boys out of here with their Wisp, commercial resort, proposed mini golf.
Yeah, I'll give just a brief statement. So commercial resorts are a specific use in the ordinance, and the procedural requirements are, it says, before the issuance of any zoning permit, a detailed plan for the proposed development of a site for commercial resort shall be submitted to and reviewed by the County Planning Commission. We've had some of these before, and we discussed them in previous planning commissions. We decided that if it was just a small little change, I think there was a entrance way one time, things like that, that it was decided that we could approve those in the office. But anything that changes kind of the character or extent of it would go back to the planning commission for another review. So the WISP as a commercial resort has already been approved. So you're looking just to make sure that this complies with the general character of that use. So I'll let you guys, if you want to.
Already provided, or I think everybody should have a copy, already provided a list of do's and don'ts or whatever on it.
Just some questions
Right.
I thought you, or concerns that may arise.
That's good, because that way we can, any discussion on this? You have any issues that are gonna come up?
I don't believe so. I mean, I don't know if you guys want to, do you think it will take extra parking or anything like that for this use, or anything extra
No, and I
proposed?
expect out how much parking spaces we have at the tubing, which is not operating this
Mm-hmm.
time of year. And if we had an overflow into the lot, it's on the list, there's
Okay.
126 in the tubing lot and 400 some in the main lot. But I don't see that, we have that many, we're doing enough miniature golf course.
Mhm. Yeah, I
See any
don't,
other, anything else gonna hold it up or catch it up or anything?
no, if you look under the commercial resort, the things that are permitted, golf courses are specifically called out. So this isn't something out of the ordinary with the use. I mean, it's large enough that we felt it was appropriate to bring it back to the planning commission to make sure they thought it complied. But I don't think from a zoning standpoint, we had any immediate concerns.
Do any members have any concerns? Bruce, do you have anything you see that concerns, I mean,
Seems okay to me.
you're eliminating the ice rink and putting this in,
Well, the ice rink's been gone, yeah.
right? So anybody familiar with the width, the ice rink was on the, you drive in on the left-hand side, down towards the back. Tim, you have anything?
I don't.
We need to approve this thing, Chad?
Yeah, we should.
Okay, I'll hear a motion to approve the, proposed mini golf for the Wisp. Motion? Got a motion, second?
I'll second.
Any, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
Thank
You all
you.
ready to go?
No, we're not all ready to go, but
Well-
we're on our way. We're on our way.
If you guys want to stay for the meeting, you're more than welcome. If you want to go, that's fine. It's a really exciting thing to watch, you know?
I worked as a borough secretary when I lived in Mercersburg over by Whitetail, and I'm familiar with all the stuff that you have to go through and the form and all that.
Appreciate you, fella. That was.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank
And I
you.
will point out, the planning commission had all this information. I did send them, so they were able to review this
Okay,
ahead of
great.
time, so they were able.
Yeah.
One of the first times you had pictures, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That was nice. Artie, be careful.
Yeah, I gotta get my hip replaced. Starts getting old.
Yeah. All right, next thing on the agenda is zoning appeals cases.
Let
Bruce?
Bruce handle those.
First one we have this month is a special exception, number 503, submitted by Thomas and Genevieve Bean of BRG Enterprises LLC to allow the construction of a private indoor boat storage building in the Ag Resource Zone. Property is located at 391 Persian Farm Road tax map 66, parcel 444. They have a home in that neighborhood, I believe about 3/4 of a mile away, and do not have the room for a storage building, so they're proposing to do it there.
Does this have, correct me if I'm wrong, this has to meet certain aesthetic or? No, no.
I think, was this the one that was approved, the approval expired on?
Correct.
Yeah, we got rid of
Indoor
it.
private boat storage is allowed in the Deep Creek watershed.
Right.
with the
I knew that, but I didn't know we put any caveat on about outlooks and, you know, finishes. I know we did that on
Maybe some
219.
screening and so forth like that,
Right.
if it might be an eyesore.
Is that in an HOA where it's located, do you know?
I do not know that. Persian Farm,
Because there's like
It
Persian
may.
Farm and Persian Heights and,
yeah, I'm not aware of that.
I thought that started down at the gate.
Interact with HOAs very much on our rules versus theirs. We kind of protect our own domain, so.
There's no aesthetic requirement for these type of residential structures in the ordinance, but the board can, as part of their approval, they could put whatever conditions they want on it.
We did that for the marina there on 219 a lot.
right.
If the board has any recommendations, we'll certainly consider them when it comes down to us.
I just think that's important that we need to watch that from now on. I would recommend that we try to give it some kind of
Maybe a recommendation that it stays within the community aesthetic, I guess I would call it. If it's not subject to an HOA, but if it is, then they're gonna have their own
They're gonna have,
restrictions anyways.
correct.
I don't want to open up a can of worms either, but I'm saying, if it's gonna be in that area, we need to, you know, and I guess we haven't got that on some of the other, a lot of those are setting back off the road. If this one's out where you can see it coming in Persian Farm.
This one is actually going to be set back in the middle of the property.
He moved it back some from the original one.
Yeah, the original plan was to have it out on the front corner.
And they moved that
I
back.
actually have a site plan if you want to see where that's going. The original approval was for here.
Right, that's what I
and
thought.
He's moving it to the
Okay.
back of the property in
Okay.
in the
I'm not, that doesn't bother me as much, but if it's out.
Yeah, thank you.
Because we did that with the one there on 219 because it was facing the road. What was on the backside, we didn't.
And there are some aesthetic requirements for non-residential structures like that in town center. So that, some of that is built into the zoning ordinance. It's not in this case.
On this approval, do you want us to put a caveat in there to look at, I'm not as concerned about it now as I was when it was setting out.
Whatever the board thinks, we'll consider it when it comes to us.
I mean, I think
Any
that.
recommendations are appreciated.
Right.
Yeah, and I think I gave you all some information about your role in all this. So for special exceptions that deal with use, that's a little bit of a bigger picture thing, and I think the planning commission can have good insight into that. So, and it says in the ordinance that the Board of Appeals shall ask for your opinion on that. Now, that may be that you just say we don't have an opinion, but I think that's your role, is to provide something.
Right.
Variances are a little different. A lot of times that's something very site-specific, and the planning commission may not have enough information to really weigh in on those. But I think for the special exceptions, you should be looking at those and deciding, do we want to have any recommendations to the board?
Liz, what do you think? You think we ought to put
I
something?
think that I would just generally say it should fit within the community aesthetic. Would be
That would be-
my,
You want to make a
only
motion to that
comment.
effect?
yes, I'll make that motion.
Everybody okay with that? Second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor of sending it on down?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved, Chad. Next.
Number 2 is a variance request, BR 833, submitted by Frank and Patricia Schmizzy, for a variance to allow the construction of a single-family residence to within 15 feet of the front property line. The property is located at 829 Beckman Peninsula Road, tax map 59, parcel 349, grid 19, and is zoned LR1. This property is triangular in shape and has two fronts on it. There's a road on the front side and it hits the triangle, and a road continues behind this property as well. And I can show you
That probably wasn't in your packet, so Bruce can hand that out.
We dealt with one of these back on,
Hazelhurst.
Hazelhurst Terrace, in that area one time.
Yes, a lot of the older communities with smaller lots run into these issues. So there's the existing, and this is the proposed.
Tim, you want-
I can see it, that's okay.
So there's a roadway here, and then another road coming around behind. It's more of a secondary road, if you will. There's a few homeowners back here. But this
So
is
refresh my
the
memory, how we
property
approaching it
line.
now, you're gonna go, you're using this as a setback
The front is always the road right away.
this way, just, okay.
Well,
Yeah.
there's two.
Well, yes.
But on
I'm
this
saying-
particular case, there's two fronts.
Right, but I guess that's what I'm
So it's
asking.
40 feet is what the ordinance asks for, and they're proposing to get it to within 15 back there.
So they're asking for a 23-foot variance, isn't it?
Correct.
And they're asking for a 10-foot variance, or,
Well, these are grandfathered
Because of where the house
setbacks
is
from the
now.
old house, yes.
okay, I mean, you understand what,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, it just, I guess my concern is,
These two are grandfathered.
And we have two
and
roads.
This is their request.
And this is the less
by
used.
property,
Yes.
kind of limits on the setbacks.
Thank you.
Yeah, so for variances, it does say that the board has the power to vary in the case of irregular, now narrow, shallow, steep lots. There's specific certain things, so in that case, that's up to the person to make that case. But if there are certain physical limitations, it does give the board some leeway. But they still need to show hardship, practical difficulty.
Well, right, I understand
Yeah.
that, but just the hardship with having two roads like situation, especially if you have a lot that size, you know, in that shape, it's kind of hard to,
Yeah, it's an irregular shape, it's not typical lot configuration.
I mean, the lucky thing is they have the one house that's built close enough to the corner,
Yeah.
but they've already established that setback.
I think that's one of those we're gonna have to see in person. I mean, on paper, I think it was like 2,800 square feet. I mean, it is definitely an irregular shaped lot, and there's definitely, I would say, hardships there, but it doesn't give you the right to build.
No,
a house
I agree.
For the
I
lot.
agree.
So, but a lot of times we go ahead and look at it and go, oh, okay, this makes sense, so.
I guess what I'm saying is, if you got to establish the corner with the grandfather, but if you, let's say you establish a setback off of that corner, if it made more sense to shift the house, and now you got 33 feet there, you got 17 feet on this side, and you gotta fit whatever, you know what I'm saying, would it be better to center the house? I don't know, I'm
The
throwing stuff
more-
out there because you got both sides of the road.
The more this house would get shifted to the right, it gets tighter there though.
Okay, that's what it looked like, but I'm just.
Yeah,
using
so
that.
they're in a rock and a hard spot.
I mean, that lot being that small and that size of the house, I mean, that's,
So is there a hardship, the lot shape and the slope?
Irregular shaped lot.
Right, and slope, does slope issues there?
I don't think slope's an issue, no.
From what I gather, the board might consider that the road they want to be closer to is less traveled than the other one too, so.
I think it is an internal road now.
Yeah.
okay. You got anything, anything want to add anything to this? Send on down to the appeals board then.
I have a third special exception, number 504, submitted by Brenda McDonald, Trader's Coffee House, to allow a drive-through in town center. Property is located at 19567 Garrett Highway, tax map 58, parcel 460. This is in the old Rayleigh building between McDonald's and Castleman Bakery. Drive-throughs require a special exception hearing in Deep Creek watershed.
The only concern I have for the board is getting off the road, the same driveway as McDonald's.
Mhm.
Understand what I mean? That, the only concern I have, you know, you got a drive-through for McDonald's, Which side the drive-through gonna be
Well,
on?
the drive-through's on the other side that faces the
Make
bakery.
more sense, right?
It's
Well,
my
they're
understanding.
in one side and out the other,
Right.
and that's gonna probably be the same thing with this one.
Right.
It'll be going around the back of the building and out the other side, so.
I believe they proposed coming in the northern
Yes.
entrance and coming out to the southern
Yeah.
entrance that is McDonald's entrance, so it'd be exiting and entrancing, but beside one another. But they've already talked to the state road, I think.
They have.
And I think that's what they've come up
That's the only concern I would just, great idea. That one up in there, we were talking about that one up in that, or towards Benny, there's Barry, that line, big coffee drinker there every day, all the time. Never drank that much coffee. Anybody have any problem with this one? Send it on down.
That's it for me.
That it? Thank you, Bruce.
Yes, sir.
Wait a minute, I lost my, who's next? Sierra, are you next?
I can go next.
Transportation, priority
Sierra's
letters.
So we have 4 ag districts to look at. The Ag Land Advisory Board has already approved them. The first one I want to share with you, where'd it go? It's this one, you can only see the outline of it. This one here, it is, I'll just click on this and I'll have a better idea. It's on Accident Friendsville Road. It is 52.7 acres. There's no dwellings on it. It's owned by Beverly Stone. It's adjacent to current easements that we have for for Rural Legacy, and hopefully we'll have this one under Rural Legacy soon. So this is the first one, and it's outside of this is the planned water and sewer area, and since it's adjacent to other easements, we like to see that. And then I guess I'll just go through all of them. That sounds good.
with. The highlighted areas are existing easements.
Yeah, the highlighted areas are the easements that we have. The yellow is water and sewer areas. Let me turn that off. I can turn off the zoning too.
Hard to see it, little.
So the property, this one is in the
Yeah,
Bear
you
Creek
can't really
area.
see. Yeah, so this one, it's this property here.
And they can use rural legacy funding to get easements
Yeah.
in this area.
So it's like forested and field. Then our next one that we want to go to. Trying to zoom around my map here. This one is right on the state line. I always forget what application I'm in. So this one is right on the state line north of, it's kind of in between, it's like northwest of Grantsville, off of, let's see here, Zemfer Road. This one, its soil's qualified just like ever so slightly, so if they would go for an easement, they would have to donate a good bit of land. Though it is a farm, and it also, they have a lot of development rights. It's on both sides of a county road. It is, I think, 130 acres. See if I can get. Yeah, 165 acres total. So, and that belongs to the Knox family. Then our next one is, this one I have the most questions about. So I had wanted to send a map to the town of Grantsville. They're working on their comprehensive plan right now. This is 90 acres. It's on either side of Dorsey Hotel Road. But as you can see, our water and sewer, like this is the PFA, like the growth area, which also coincides with like the planned water area and also the planned sewer area. And there's a map, and it's like an attachment to their last comprehensive plan, which had this whole area all the way to the state line as growth area for Grantsville, which if you're just looking at like for comprehensive plans, we usually like do 10-year periods. It seemed a little generous in terms of like, okay, we're just gonna have Grantsville sprawl out to that level. So I guess my question to the town is, if this was preserved and locked down as like agricultural land, would that really prove, like now's a good time to make a decision on this. But I don't know. I think as an ag district, it would be fine, because then they could, if they did the tax credits, then we'd be in trouble, because then they'd have to pay penalties back, or we'd have to work something out. So I don't know. This one I have like still questions about. So this one I was hoping to provide you some information saying the town of Grantsville is totally cool with this, or they are not. So I apologize. So this one, it's right on the edge of being, it is 90 acres of existing farmland, but also like, it feels like so close to the current infrastructure. I'm on the edge. It was a district before he terminated the district, so this, so he's already been in the program before, but you know, this gives us another chance to look at it.
And one of the things we always look at in Mouth, the state looks at, is if it's in an existing or planned water sewer service area, they don't necessarily want to spend money to preserve farms in that area. That's the area you've already
Yeah, it's
designated
like
for growth.
you have
so.
access, and also that would give it more development rights as well, so. Yeah, I'm not
This
sure.
one's right on the
this one.
border.
And lastly, we have one more. Keep on wanting to like right click and zoom too, because that's how it works on my desktop. Anyway, this one is 121 acres, owned by Ethan Carey. It is just west of Frostburg, and here's like Piney Reservoir, just south of it, and we actually have some other easements in that area. And it is like the growth corridor is actually along National Freeway, but this one, let me see here. Do I have, I think I have PFA. Yeah, PFA's on here, but I don't have the growth area any longer for some reason. So anyway, what am I doing that? Look at that. Oh, let's see. There we go. So yeah, there's a growth area. Anyway, so that is, I think that's appropriate, and he was also considering adding a parcel next to it that his father owns that he would eventually own, potentially that could be preserved as well. So, and those are the 4 ag districts. Any questions?
I have one question. Is this taking into consideration the Pennsylvania finishing 219 to the Maryland line?
Yeah, and that area, so Joe Yoder's property, he's right here. That is all through like this area here, where all these proposed lines are. Let me draw. I can do a little circle for you. Maybe.
Is that supposed to start soon?
They are doing planning for, they haven't picked the alignment, but we're very close to like having those alignments. We're talking about, whenever I have updates with SHA and PennDOT, we talk about what kind of access we want in terms of like, you know, because you have your main road that goes really fast, but how many places does it turn off, or do we provide access like points? Where do we put those? In terms of, you know, if the Chestnut Ranch development would be built, then we'd have direct in there, or is it like a side road that goes up and around, and trying to figure out those elevations and things. So, but actually like the Dorsey, this Dorsey Hotel does not interfere with any of that. I guess if you'd ever want like 669 to be a bigger road, which I think there's enough right of way right there in Maryland would be fine, and that wouldn't be really affected by that property. But it's mainly the growth of if Grantsville, or if they'd want to expand infrastructure. And yeah, this one, this is my crazy growth map, which if you see, that whole pink area is what Grantsville's like, we're going to be big. And I'm like, I don't know about that, guys. So it's like, let's put a little more thought into that, and as opposed to like all of this.
I guess my next question is there any plan for the state to move 219 any further?
Yeah, so where are we at on that? So they have committed design and engineering funding. So like I said, we're trying to get through this. We actually submitted, like the clock started on it in December. We have, I forget what it was, we sent it to the Federal Highway Administration for their approval. And so that was like their NEPA process began. So I have a child who, when she graduates from high school, she's in 3rd grade right now, will be doing hopefully ribbon cutting when she graduates. So 10 years from now, so.
We need to approve this.
Yes.
Anybody have anything to add? Nicely done. Motion?
I have
Could you
one-
do like
I
a
have one comment.
Wait,
caveat
wait,
to like
hold
the
on.
Grantsville?
Yeah, I have a comment about that. Doesn't she need to hear back from
I do want to
Grantsville
hear
first?
back from Grantsville, so if you want to make a motion like pending Grantsville's decision.
That's fine. Let's make a motion. I'm sorry
That's
about
what
that.
I
lady
would like.
comment.
I would, that's what I prefer.
So you make that motion for,
I will make that motion that she hears back from Grantsville on their plans for that area.
second?
Before
I'll
we
second.
Otherwise approve the other three on the list.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds
Any-
good.
It'll be forwarded
further
then to the
discussion?
county commissioners.
What's that?
These will then be forwarded to the county commissioners for their final vote.
Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion? Aye.
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 Now we gotta do the whole thing? Or is that all we need for now?
If you were okay with voting on all four of them,
Mhm.
that was your intent.
I mean, other than the Grantsville, everything else is Saturday.
That's the motion I made, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. We good with that, Chad?
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
Good,
Thank you.
no problem.
Thank you.
All right, we gotta do some county districts.
Those were the districts. Sierra
That
has
was it.
transportation priority letter now.
And now for my other item. Every year, MDOT comes up with their consolidated transportation plan, which is how they like budget projects and everything. So for the local jurisdictions, we have a chance to say, hey, your road that's in my area, I know it intimately, this is what you need fixed. The way we do that is through this priority letter. So I started off, we've been doing this since like 2012. So I got a hold of all the mayors and, I talked to them individually and was like, is there anything that's bothering you like countywide or in your area specifically? So we had like a list of like, it was like 30 items. So that, the mayor's meeting, we actually went through and we sorted them like 1 through 30. MDOT, they like to have an idea of what takes precedence over another. Because yes, the bridges come out a different pot of money than like a bike lane. But, if a bike lane's more important than your bridge, then they want to know that so they can fund it. So that's what this letter is telling them. So then after I went to the municipalities, and the commissioners kind of got their requests, then I went back to SHA because there's some that are little, like culverts or ditches, then SHA knows about it and it's on their maintenance list and it doesn't have to be in the letter. We're looking for things that like cost money or we want to put a grant in for it that we can support. So then that list got narrowed down to 16 items, and so made sure all the mayors were happy with it. The commissioners ordered it, took it back to all the mayors, they agreed with it. And so those projects are in order are the US 219 North extension to the Pennsylvania state line, which we just mentioned. A pedestrian and bicycle concept plan connecting the towns along Maryland 135, so Oakland, Laughlin, and Mountain Lake Park. There's a lot of space on 135, a lot of town parks and schools, a nice pedestrian bikeway. So there's some TAP grants and some other grants available. I'm trying to figure out how to stack them. I'm hoping we can put some applications in for the concept. So, that's the first step is like where does this go? What does it look like? Then we're working with SHA and the owners at Traders Landing to do some functional improvements in terms of access and crossings and line painting and fencing or whatever we need to get pedestrians and traffic through there more efficiently. We had a meeting, I guess, back in November. We're trying to follow up with the landowners, so we're going to fix that section, and then potentially we could add that kind of treatment throughout the corridor, which would be really nice. Then another one we'd like to do in terms of concept plan is connecting Oakland to Harrington Manor, like where that goes, what that looks like, what kind of amenities we need. I'd like to put in a grant to hire a consultant to do that, so this would support that grant application. Oakland bypass, this is a slightly updated version of the bypass, which is just, 2-lane highway that would be similar to the character of like 219 south of Oakland and also north of Oakland, but being in the bypass area. It got brought down. It was always like number 2, but in terms of constituents and perception, it's still a contentious issue. So that's why, and I was hoping these other projects they're more likely to get finished, so then the next time we write a priority letter, we can say, hey, state, thank you so much for supporting these projects. We got these across the list. How about this number 5? Let's move this along. So, and then looking at some concept, because there's a lot of space on 219 from Mosser Road to Glendale Road, especially like until you get to the bridge for a bike and ped, but just a lot of pavement. It's not very safe. Let's see here. Then we have Grantsville sidewalk extension. So from the east side of town all the way to River Road, connecting the state park and everything. That they have a concept plan, so hopefully engineering funds will get for that project. There are some functional improvements that were brought up in a study done by SHA on Sand Flat Road to connect 135 and 219. So we're encouraging to move forward with those as number 8. So Oakland had a sidewalk streetscape project on this list for many, many years. I think in terms, so we pivoted this time because there's no sidewalk or streetscape funding pot of money. And also I think the landowners in Oakland are kind of hesitant to have sidewalks in front of their houses. So instead, I think the ultimate goal is to connect North Oakland and South Oakland and have a nice way to get through there using, non-motorized transportation or active transportation, as people call it. So come up with a concept plan of how you can do that through paths or sidewalks and have a safe way to connect the town. That's probably would be a grant application I would do maybe next year, but I'd like to put it out in the world. Let's see here. Then we have supporting Garrett Transit's operation and capital funding. Grantsville sidewalk and expansion, so it's part of an ARC project, but we're hoping we can scoot in some funding for, minimize that. Can you turn off my screen, Chad? Anyway, sorry about that. So add in some funding for expanding the sidewalks in that area. Friendsville requested sidewalks along First Street. There's a little bit of sidewalks in that part of town, but it's not fully connected, so it would be nice. And it's also a state highway owned area. Modernize the traffic controls at Alder Street and Oak Street. They're those traffic lights are from the 70s. I think we can do a little better than that. And clearly there's some functionalities that we're lacking that would make that a little smarter. Then accident, when I talked to them, there's really no good way to cross 219, and then they have parks on the west side of town, east side of town, and also the school. And the fate of the school, we'll see what happens to that. But in terms of connecting all those, potentially that's an idea for a concept plan in terms of trails. Then I also put a grant in for a strategic highway safety plan in February. So it's looking at the enforcement and infrastructure side of making things safer using metrics. So hopefully I get that grant, and that's why that's in here. And then we can apply for other funding once we have that safety plan in place. And lastly, trail design and engineering funds for connecting Friendsville to the Pennsylvania line. So the section that they want to connect to the Pennsylvania line is all owned by the Army Corps, and the Army Corps is let's build a trail. So that sounds exciting. So we can continue moving forward with that. So that's it. But hopefully we get all, they give us all the money and we get all the projects, and that would be nice, right?
Anybody have any discussion on the transportation priority plan? Motion to approve, right? Motion. Motion second. Second.
Well, thank you
Any
guys.
further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
Yeah. So, one last thing about the letter. So hopefully this year, I got the commissioner signatures. I have 6 of the 8 mayor signatures, and I'm working on the senator and the delegate signature. So whenever we turn this in, it should really send a really strong message that it was a cooperative process, and we're all on the same page. So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chad?
Yes, we had Pull and Run East final plats, but those did not show up. I think there was an issue with public utilities, so that will probably be delayed maybe till next month. So, Mylars were, I talked to the surveyor today, but he wasn't able to get the Mylars signed.
Anything else? Okay. Anybody else needs point anything out, good? Everything all right? Okay. I have a couple things we want to talk about, but I was approached about a couple things that probably need to look at down the road. One is there's a new fad of what they call container construction. And we evidently are starting to put some container construction in Garrett County, which I think we've probably talked about a lot of different types of construction, and I don't think we have anything to do with container construction that I'm aware of, right?
Well, we get all different kinds of questions, people wanting to build all different kinds of things. And we're basically looking at the elements in those. If they have a bedroom, bathroom, and a kitchen, it's a dwelling unit, and we make them conform to building code. So we're working through that. All these different types of structures have their own headaches somewhat when you're trying to apply the building code to them. As far as zoning is concerned, the zoning ordinance doesn't address them one way or the other. It specifically addresses modular homes and single wide trailers, which, you know, could be the opinion that these are very similar to that, require a special exception in many of the districts. So, but as of right now, if you want to build a container home, as long as you comply with the building code, there's nothing in the Deep Creek Watershed zoning ordinance that would prohibit that. Doesn't really speak to it one way or the other.
I guess my question to the group is, do you think we need to start looking, the other thing that's gonna come up is tree house. I mean, we don't have anything to address tree houses.
No, again, if it's has those
We have a
elements.
couple
and-
buildings in Garrett County, but they were outside the watershed.
Yes, yeah, so if
But
you.
there are some that are proposed in the watershed, I've heard that. Not that anybody's permitting, but I think they're being thought out right now.
It could be, yeah. I mean, if they brought it to us and they were able to comply with the installation requirements, the structural requirements, sprinklers, if they could comply with all that, we don't really get into what it looks like necessarily in the watershed.
I mean, I guess I'm asking the planning commission as a group, do we need to address, especially the container construction, at some point to give some guidance, you know, to what we're expecting? I mean, it's a new fad. I mean, the tiny house and all that stuff are all
Well,
new in our industry.
I mean, I think my only comment on that is that we're at a period in our economy where a lot of people that want to move here or live here and raise a family can't afford to build a house or buy a house. So I think we have to be open to different types of construction, different types of homes, and look into those types. So to me, it's too early in that process for us to say that we need to specifically look into container homes. But I would think that should be an option if they can, you know, meet the building codes. I'm not sure why that would be an issue if someone wanted to do that.
I mean, I tend to agree that a lot of regulations, I guess what I'm saying is that if somebody comes in and flops your container down beside your house and there's no impacted watershed and there's no siding or no, you know what I'm saying? I guess that's what I'm getting at. Do we need, and I'm not asking for aesthetic zoning as much as I am, we don't have any priority now, so you can't, as long as it meets the codes, it can look like that.
We don't regulate, I mean, you could do a pink house, you could do whatever, you know, there's nothing aesthetic in terms of residential construction right now. You can meet the building code, that's what we're looking at. Again, single wide mobile homes are regulated, those require special exception in most areas, but double wides, modular homes, you can do those. So that's about the only distinction we draw currently.
And those are only in the zoned areas, those aren't outside zoning.
Yeah, outside that, we don't.
And you wouldn't be able to control the others.
Oh, no,
outside
all I'm asking, I'm just bringing this up for discussion.
Right.
Because you're gonna have a situation where, again, I understand Liz's point, and I agree 100%, that like, affordability is a lot of the reason why people are going to tiny houses or the mods or whatever they are, container homes or whatever. My concern is if the market value and say 1,000 acres is this, and then you got somebody comes in and does this, and we don't have any control over what the finish is. I'm not saying, I guess I'm just asking the question, a modular home's gotta have siding on it. A trailer's gotta have siding on it. You know, that, I mean, I guess there's issues that I'm looking at that outside that. I mean, does that container need to look like a finished product when it's done? I haven't seen one uncompleted. I've watched some video on one, I've seen, you know,
There's one near the wine deli store on 219. I'm sorry, on Glendale.
Glendale Road.
That pops into mind. On the affordability side of that, as a 30-year builder, I've looked into that, and basically costs more to finish that as a home on site than it would to build a home from scratch, from stick built. Because you have to still bring that container in, and it may be structurally sufficient on its own, but there's nowhere to put insulation, wiring, plumbing, so you have to basically frame a house inside of it anyway. So basically, all you're buying is
The
siding.
box, right,
You're buying siding,
right.
corrugated steel siding.
We've had a lot of discussions with people a lot of times. Once we go through that and explain it to them, they seem to lose interest, because I think
I
they
guess
realize.
the next question is, do you need us as a planning commission to give you any guidance on this or not?
Well, right now, there's nothing in the ordinance about it. So the ordinance, if you want to amend the ordinance, that can either start with a citizen or the planning commission at any time. You know, if you all want to discuss that and say this is something we want to look at, you can come up with an amendment. And I think there would be two ways to do that for this. I mean, you can establish aesthetic controls for every type of structure, or you can, like has been done with single wide trailers, you can pick out a specific type of structure. You know, if container homes were an issue, if you felt they were an eyesore, we could have a clear definition of container home, and that could be either not permitted or a special exception where the board could then look at it and say, we want to see what type of siding is going to go on, or we want to see how it's going to look before we're going to approve it. That puts a lot of the onus on the Board of Appeals, and I don't know if they want to do that. So it's really up to the Planning Commission if you all want to take that up, and you know, certainly staff can come up with different recommendations and present them to you, and you can decide if you want to do that. Aesthetic zoning's always been somewhat shied away, because you do kind of open up with
believe
every.
me, I've been in the middle of that conversation.
So-
So all I'm saying is, we have a new game in town.
Mm-hmm.
How do you address the new game? Because, like I said, in the next thing will be, the tree houses are becoming pretty popular too. Now, it's almost impossible with Garrett County to probably keep from freezing or whatever. But, you know, I don't know, that could be, you know, an issue too. I guess what I'm saying is this new construction, and I'm asking you, I'm asking the planning commission, we want to take it on and try to come up with something. You guys, like I said, give us recommendation on what you think you need, and then discuss it at the next meeting or whatever. We want to just let it go, wash under the bridge. I'm asking the planning commission that. Tim, do you have any opinion on it?
No, I understand your concern, but I guess until it becomes an issue, maybe we just wait for it.
Liz?
Well, I mean, I've been kind of looking into not necessarily the container homes, but alternatives to stick built or modulars or whatever. And so sometimes things come up, like I just found out that there's 3D homes, 3D printing of homes, which I had no idea was an option. So don't think it would be a bad thing for us to look into different types of affordability, and maybe think a little outside of the box of what we traditionally see. But that would be, just way in the beginning part of researching those and seeing what they really look like. The 3D homes I thought was interesting. Haven't really looked into those yet.
Now, I'm going to voice my opinion. If nothing else, I think we at least need to define them in our zoning, don't we? I would think.
I think we need to figure out what's out there and what the new alternatives are. I mean, it's kind of also, I saw on Amazon, not that it would be applicable here, but they can build a little house they give you for $3,000, and they set it up, and I mean they're tiny, but I'm wondering if they have homes along the spectrum, if they start at $3,000 and go all the way up. So I've been kind of looking into that on my own. I don't think it would be bad to look into it, but I think it's too soon to change any policy that we have.
Bruce?
My comment to you would be, the framers of our original zoning ordinance went to a lot of problem, or felt it was important enough to regulate single wide trailers in the zoning district. These sea containers are as similar to a single wide trailer as any other type of construction I can think of. So I think we ought to try to be a little proactive and instead of reactive, and it is here, because there's others, other than the one along Glendale Road, there is others coming. And the board, as the ordinance is written now, really has no tools to deal with it. So I'd like to see us say to the office, look into it, put a little thought into it, and tell us what we can do, if anything, what we can give you to help you, deal with that. I don't know, I understand the affordability part of things, but again, we're talking about just the zoning district that historically is not the most economical. I mean, that's not where primarily where you think of as lower cost housing would be, you know what I mean? So I think it's something that we need to look at for the sake of our planning office here, and we need to give them the right tools to address these situations. It's, I mean, much like, solar that we just talked about not too long ago, it's not coming, it's here now. It's whether it's going to be every day or once in a while, but it's here. I mean, they're seeing it. So I just want to give them the right tools to deal with what they need to do day to day.
Well, like I said, you are right, a lot of times we're reactive, and this is a chance to look at it before we have to deal with a problem. Larry, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking about that. It seems to me that if, I'm not really familiar with these containers, what you're calling containers, but
Like a shipping container.
it seems to me if you're gonna build in the zoned areas, if you can afford one of those lots, then you ought to be able to afford something more than a container to live in. So I'm not sure the affordability here really has anything to do with this. I think it's the aesthetic value and everything in a zoned district. If they want to bring one of those containers in, take it out in the country somewhere and build, put it up, set it up. I don't know, maybe because I'm not all that familiar with this, so.
Well, I think we all need to be educated on a little bit more. Like, we all watch the videos and these new, my wife's on these tiny houses now, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna fit in a tiny house, but the bottom line, she's like Liz, she researches all this stuff. you know?
Right, I mean, I have too many shoes to live in a tiny house.
Well, based on what Bruce said, you could categorize it under motor homes.
Well, that
And
we
that
do
kind of
regulate.
protects you for the interim until you see what happens. You could put
Yeah, again, I think we should ask the office to tell us, think about it, to fall into and see that might be one approach.
Sure.
But right now, they just have, I mean, much like solar, 2 years ago, you had no way to, nothing,
Right.
didn't have the tools to address it.
that would be easy verbiage to add and not take up a lot of room too.
You want to add something?
I was just saying, isn't there square footage requirements in most areas of these containers?
No.
Meet that?
Minimums and
minimums.
maximums? No.
If it has those elements, bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, it's a house, regardless if it's tiny or a big mansion. If it has those elements, that we define that as basically a house, as a dwelling unit.
We have one other issue with that as well. Manufactured homes as a whole, mobile homes, single wides, double wides, and modulars all come out of HUD certified and inspected warehouses. And these other homes, such as these container homes, that all has to be done on site because to my knowledge, there are no HUD certified container houses.
That's a good point.
So the county, our inspectors need to inspect every phase of that build as it goes along. And then secondly, we have had tiny homes built here in the county. We've inspected them in the factory and on site, both ways. But we've had the opportunity to look at them in each phase along the way, be it framing, electrical, plumbing,
Sprinkler, right.
installation, all of it, and the installation of fire sprinklers. So there's a kind of a double-edged sword to allow it at all for right now until someone becomes proficient at that and gets certified at it.
Jeff?
Just to refresh for me,
how does I guess, like new single wide trailers, like Bruce said, is there anything right now?
Yeah, so single wides they require special exception.
So these are, like you said, nothing more than the same, they're just an ironclad single wide trailer. And they don't have that, they're just staying by me what it is, Bruce, but they're labeled somehow.
It's HUD.
It's a HUD.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
does it come already finished?
No.
Or does
You
it
gotta
just
train.
show up in
We've
a?
been questioned on that there are tiny homes, actually, you mentioned it for one, that you can buy pre-finished and they can ship it and set it up for you. Well, that works fine in an area like West Virginia that doesn't have that kind of code to cover that up. But Maryland has all sorts of codes that we have to inspect. And so they can't just bring a pre-finished shed here that has a bedroom and a kitchen and a bathroom and hook it up, because no one's inspected that.
But unless it's stamped by the state of Maryland
Yeah,
inspector, right?
if it's a modular
If
home,
it's a modular home
Right.
built, yes, yeah, I was referring more toward the time.
Oh, you're right, I agree. I'm
Yeah, I was
just
just
making sure.
curious as to
Clarify.
how it came.
Yeah, there are several people, there's Quonset huts out there that you can they're already pre-built, they come out and kind of piece them together for you and like.
Well, there are yurts out there. There are yurts.
Well, I think the container thing's a little different than most other things. I mean, there's barn dominiums, there's all kinds of things, but all those are different types of constructions. Tiny homes, that's a whole different thing, but we've decided, or like again, or framers of our zoning ordinance decided that single wide trailers should be regulated or not allowed in the district, and here we're, what's next? Don't drag them in on train cars and cut them up,
Well, the guys on buses, school buses,
There you go.
making them into home, rental home.
These, by and large, the ones I have seen anyway, come in as empty shipping containers, and then they just start cutting them up to cut in windows and whatever. There's no structural data on what that's doing. I mean, every other, I'm sure it's fine, but I mean, every other type of construction has to meet snow load, numbers and everything else, and these things are,
There's no stamp.
Nothing.
There's no PE stamp. There probably is, I shouldn't say that. I don't know.
Well, we definitely need to get more education, we need to get more information.
Right, so, I mean, could you arguably say that they would be a manufactured home, like in the definition of manufactured?
that's where I think the office needs to give us some input on that. I'm just saying this issue needs some attention, I think.
Well, you can even add that it needs to be HUD certified too.
well, they couldn't be. So single wides and double wides are HUD. That's the single wide and double wide trailers. That's a specific federal thing that does those. Manufactured homes or modular homes, they're built in a factory to Maryland standards. So those are very distinct things. I don't think you could build these to a HUD stand. I don't know how that would work. I mean, we would, if they were
Well, I
built
mean,
to
they
that
could
standard,
be-
we would accept them.
I mean, that's reason enough next week.
Yeah, I mean, conceptually, they could create a HUD factory and
Right.
start pumping each out, but to what you're saying, I think if they do that, yeah, then they can be looked at as a HUD home, but until then, I think I agree with that.
Jeff, you have anything else? I mean, that you kept.
Well, so the one on Glendale, they just built it? Or, I mean, they just brought it in and built it?
Just recently, they built it and then put a
Roof.
frame shed roof on it.
They got permits for it, and we demanded engineering for what they were gonna do, because they kind of put a roof over the top of
Right.
it. And so they had to get engineering for it. And we inspected as they went through the phases of building out the interior of it.
There's a similar structure like that, not where Point View used to be, but just in Half Moon Bay in the turn there. There's another, but I think that was
That's a
stick
stick-built
built,
house.
but it looks like that. It has the single roof line, and but it does look structured now. Has a similar look though.
Do our guests have anything? You got any input on or anything? Sarah, do you want to say anything about it?
No, but I do think in terms of addressing our affordable housing issue, like, this might, I don't know, I think sprinklers are really important to like houses, but also at the same time, like, adding $30,000 to a project that is already, you know, tight for a lot of people's budgets makes it really hard. I don't know where I'd like for us to be innovative with housing. I think it would be good for the county and our region, our goals, but in terms of doing that and complying with the laws, I haven't figured out the loophole for that. Or where we, like, what the answer is.
I mean, because a lot of the stuff that is zoned anyways is in neighborhoods that have HOAs, like 1,000 acres. You're not doing that in 1,000 acres, let's be honest. So some of those, you know, neighborhoods, it wouldn't happen anyways, but there are parts of the county that are zoned that, you know, the lot's not $1 million. Maybe it's owned by a family and inherited by someone. So I do think it would be good for us to look into it.
Are there any exceptions for, like, if it's not a single, is there any inside of the zoning area where it would be like a hunting lodge or like something else that wouldn't be considered a single family? Or is that?
Not really. So the in the zoned areas, you either have primary uses or accessory buildings. So those sort of things that don't have those elements, bathroom, kitchen, bedroom, they're kind of in this gray area. So we've always said that, you know, if you have a house, you can do an accessory like a mother-in-law suite or so, but those other type of structures don't really work in the zoned areas.
As soon as you put a bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, it's no longer an accessory.
Yeah, if you do that, you can, again, this comes into this whole question. You put those elements in it and you're willing to put the sprinkler and build it to building code. We don't really get into whether it looks like a hunting shack or a mansion. If you have those things, you comply with code, you can do it now.
Most of the zoned areas don't allow an accessory building without the primary structure.
Yeah, that's the big issue. So outside of zoning, it's not that clear. So you could build something that's a structure without all those elements in it. It's much more lenient outside the zoned areas.
I guess my concern, I know you guys are very busy. If we ask you to take on a task of giving us more information on this, is that something you guys can do or have time to do?
Yeah, I'll be on vacation the next couple of weeks, so it might not be for the May meeting, but, you know, we could work on that. We could at least give some, you know, look to see if other jurisdictions have done anything with this. We could come up with some definitions. You know, you always have to be careful you're defining things, and then a little comparison of what's in the ordinance now, and then, you know, you all could decide if that's something you want to take up, and either, you know, you could ban outright or make a special exception, or how you want to look at that, and then if the planning commission feels that's appropriate, you can always propose an amendment, and then it would be forwarded to the county commissioners for their final meeting and review to decide if they want to
I
actually.
guess the other thing too, Bruce, if you have a little time, I'll try to do some research myself, but if you have some time to see how what kind of safety, when they're selling those, is there any kind of safety inspection on the cubic, on the box itself, the container itself, before they sell it? I'd like to know that, because structurally, I see some of them stacking them. And you know, I've seen people stack them, put them out in the road, and then put a roof over top, use it for storage bins or barns or something like that. I mean, now I'm starting to see where they stack them at different angles, different, you know, make a configuration.
Right. Well, again, because it's non-standard construction, we've demanded engineering for them. So a PE is gonna have to look at them and sign off.
Right.
I'm not so worried about those containers as a whole from a life safety point of view and structural integrity, because they stack those things 10 high.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And
Right.
50 wide and chain them down on those cargo ships. I'm not too concerned that they're gonna compress under any load, but I'm more concerned about the egress and aesthetics.
I agree.
Quite frankly.
Okay, well, you guys don't mind doing that, when you get a chance, I don't know if you can get it to the next meeting, if not, we'll do it to next.
Maybe for June, maybe.
Everybody satisfied with that, you satisfied with it?
Sure.
Now, the next thing I have is one of the person cornered me about this one, is we have all this stuff we kind of control in the Deep Creek watershed, and then we allow, I'm not saying we allow, but there's a house being built on Old 219 at Point View, where the old Point View restaurant was. That's like 2 feet off or 3 feet off the main highway. I mean, how is that
It
You know
meets
what
the
I'm
front-
talking
it
about.
meets the
Off main-
setback.
off the- You know, I mean, I know it's more than that, it's like 5 feet, 6 feet off the air.
Um,
There's a garage in front of it and a house that's in front of it.
Well,
It's not a
town-
complaint, it's a, you know, it's just a question that we're asking about, that they're asking about, how's that, where does that fall on our,
Town center has very lenient setbacks. You have a 10-foot front setback for the house and for any accessory buildings. Accessory buildings can go closer to the side and rear, but
is
it's
it 10
10 foot
10 feet from the road edge?
edge of right of way.
Okay. And I guess my concern is that's where, one of those situations where we had an existing, because that lot of Point View went like this. It comes to a point at the lake, like when Point View sat there wasn't any room for it. Then you had those buildings on the side, and there's a house, another house there, another cabin beside that we burnt down one time, and it came right to a point. So was that established by original setback, or was that established by,
I believe it meets setbacks.
I think, yeah, they had no variance requests, so that met setbacks. You gotta remember that that's a lakefront lot, so the garage is allowed in front. as
I understand
opposed
that,
to
no,
in the back.
It just makes it
I'm
look-
all I'm doing is just a clarification,
Yeah.
not a grill with anybody.
I can run and pull that site plan if you want to see that.
No, I mean, I'm just saying, it's just
I
one of
wouldn't
those
mind
things.
seeing it, cause it almost makes it look like the road is their personal driveway, you know?
Well, I don't think I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that it meets the current requirements. I think that's the problem. I think those need to be reviewed somehow to keep this type of thing from happening. I mean, not only is that thing so close to the road, but it's so tall and I mean, to me, when I go by there, I see it, I just think that's a zoning failure. I mean, somehow we've let some kind of loophole in our ordinance. We went to, I mean, we regulate everything from, I mean, look at the problems we went to, the extent we went to regulate signage
Yes.
in the district. And now we've allowed this to happen. I just think somehow we need to review this and so this kind of, so we can, you know, we can't put the toothpaste back in the tube on that one, but we can certainly keep it from happening further down the line. And maybe it can't happen anywhere else, but.
Well, I mean, to me, it's a safety issue. How are you gonna come out of that garage on that road? You know?
The town, you know, town center, I mean, if you're downtown or somewhere and the buildings are right curbside, so I guess, yeah, there's no little or no
There's
restriction
2 more
there.
lots there.
I believe it. And it probably can happen all up and down there, I mean, honestly.
The other thing was you had the commercial business operating there too, which crosses some state. My only question was, now the land is being purchased, the subdivisions are filling up and all this stuff. Some of these lots, we need to kind of look individually at you know, 'cause I mean, I know that was grandfathered, Point View set right at the road too, almost, you know.
Well, it's 10,000 square foot lots. So part of the issue is town center has very small lot
I understand
sizes,
that.
very, you know, very liberal setbacks or, 10-foot front, 8-foot side, 20-foot rear. So part of that idea is you have public water and sewer there, and that's where you build when you have that. So, certainly you can consider whether you want to make those setbacks stricter. You can make them stricter for everything, or you could say we just don't want accessory buildings that close. I mean, those are,
Well, that was the question, I think that was the question that I'm putting, that's out there is, do we, I always talk about setting a precedence.
Mhm.
So there's gonna be 2 more places there at some point.
Mhm.
We've already set the precedence. I don't think
Well, it's
we've done-
permitted.
We already set, the rules are in place for that one.
Mhm.
So the rules are gonna be the same for the other 2 that are built.
Yeah, I don't think the setbacks have changed in town center since 75 that I'm aware of. I'd have to double check that, but I think they've always been that more lenient
I'll
setback.
look it up here more than down here.
This is the lakeside.
Mr. Lake, that's the house.
This, I'm sorry.
That's like.
This is the
It's like, that says
I'm
five.
upside down, you know. And it shows 10-foot-5, you know.
Yeah, I think if you look at the aerial photo, I think maybe the road pavers have gotten a little overzealous and
Yeah.
We have a
Doesn't
second
look like
survey on
there's
one?
that much space there.
Is that it?
It does, and that, again, it's deceptive, but my point is now we have a situation where there's gonna be 2 more of them. Say, and we can't, you know, I'm not saying we need to check it. I just guess we need to be a little bit more as I'm looking at some of this stuff, maybe look at, that's why I said about that triangle lot with the 2 roads. I think maybe we need to take a little more time and evaluate them, you know, I'm talking about us as a group and, you know, even the zoning appeal, it's just,
Well, I think
I
that
think it doesn't come to zoning appeals.
it's permitted, so
Yeah.
it's a lenient setback
Okay,
to
they did
town
right.
center.
That's what I say, I
So,
think there's some, I think the ordinance
You
needs
care
to
to
be looked at or something. I mean, it appeared, of course, I don't see
this is-
one
Yeah,
particular
yeah.
guy. But I mean, everywhere else in the zoning, we have a median height restriction.
there would be for
Yeah.
that one. We can look at that. I don't know what
But
that,
it's 2 buildings, would that have applied?
no, accessory buildings have a different height setback.
So, you know what I mean, so that building is so tall, but if you did, if you exercise that rule between the 2, it's probably too tall, you know what I mean? So, there's gotta be a way to look at this and figure out how to, it's just
Yeah,
a
I mean-
loophole, it's just a loophole or something, and we haven't seen it yet, but I mean, there it is, it smacks you in the face when you get out of the road there.
Well, we can look at the height issue, because accessory buildings have a stricter height. They're not allowed to go as tall as the main house, so we can kind of take a look at that. I don't remember that coming up in the permit. It's been a long
I have
time.
no doubt that whole thing is perfectly code compliant, the way it is. I'm saying there's a problem with
Right.
the code.
I
that
think we
allows
should
it.
look at that again.
Yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
should.
because that whole area, you know, Jen, even down through there,
Mhm.
between, you know, Point View was there, they had the restaurant, but we have parking in there, and they parked across the road and walked across. Now with all the construction, we've added how many houses on that road now? New houses. And now we've got, you know, Carroll Place there and everything, so you got that bottleneck, you know, and that thing sits out. I don't know where, I guess you're gonna just plow the snow in the side of the garage, you know what I mean? Cause there's not much, the snow plow comes by there, it's just gonna, hit the side of the garage, you know what I mean? But I guess I'm saying is that was one that just kinda, all of a sudden, there it was. And I agree, the plat says it, like Liz said, looking at it from our view, coming along 219, look at it, that thing's left far from the edge of the road. You know, but if you look at the property line, you see how one property line steps back here? His line runs out here, then it steps back, goes this way to the next line, going towards 219.
So town center, gentlemen, what's the primary use in town center? Is it commercial or is it?
It's a mixture. I mean, you have mixture of residential and town center recognizes the core area of existing towns, provides for higher density, more compact village or small town settlements where central water and central sewage exists, to provide for single-family homes, side-by-side and twins, townhouses and apartments at an average density of approximately 5 to 6 units per acre. Also provide for retail stores, restaurants, offices, similar light commercial uses, while avoiding heavy commercial and industrial uses like factory type things like that. So, you know, it's the area you have the most public water and sewers. So part of that idea is you have smaller lot, you cram a lot of stuff in there. You have smaller lots, smaller setbacks. So,
Is that-
And that's what you get with density. I mean,
is
that's
that-
causing density.
yeah, that's where you want to put your dense stuff. And then basically expand out into lake residential,
Right.
ag resource. You're saying there, we want to have more of a rural feel. We want to have an acre lot instead of 10,000 square foot. We want to keep that rural feel. We want to have bigger setbacks. The setbacks in those areas are, when you're doing the variance for it, it's 40-foot front and rear, 15 on the side. So in those areas, you are keeping that bigger yard, keeping the bigger separation, so.
And please understand, we're not questioning either, any, what
Right.
you got, that's not at
No,
all.
we're not.
Yeah.
The
We're-
point was, it looks so,
Mm-hmm. And I-
And maybe it's an anomaly, I mean, going down Marshall Road, for instance, is that town center as well, like the first part of Marshall Road? Or not? Yeah,
No,
Marshall
well,
Road.
town residential, when you first start, and it's lake residential.
So right there, I mean, we have narrow lots and we have tall, narrow houses, and that is nowhere, in my opinion, is nowhere near as offensive as that is what happened there. I don't know, maybe it's an anomaly, maybe it's, but I just feel like there's some kind of, that we need to look at the ordinance and see if there's something we can do to tighten that to be better.
Yeah,
Sam, you got
I think
Maybe
something?
there's
so.
nothing.
I think that's a location that everyone who's spent a lot of time here at the lake has kind of come to enjoy, that that's an area where you drive past there and it's like a wide open, it's an area like, almost like an overview where you can see that big expanse of lake right there, and as soon as people start building, it changes everything.
Well, don't you-
Even the Lake Point Inn that was there originally was a low, it was a
Point-
squat structure. wasn't sticking way up in
I
the
think, I
air.
mean, that's a contemporary.
Tim, you had something?
Construction too.
Yes.
I'm just, is that town center part of McHenry, or is it out there by itself?
Town center ends right there.
Yeah, it starts about there and it
Is that
ends up
part
through
of
Deep Creek Drive.
McHenry's town center then?
Yeah.
Well, it's a Deep Creek watershed zoning district. It doesn't necessarily conform just to McHenry or anything.
Okay,
It's
I
just a
was just
separate,
wondering, yeah.
it's a separate entity
I mean,
somewhat
like,
through the
we call
watershed.
the town, I guess at Thereville's, is that town
That's
center?
town center as well.
So I just, there's kind of a distinction, but it's just kind of out there by itself, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it's on a very prominent lot, so all these things are exacerbated, so
But
it's very
wasn't
visible.
Point View similarly high in structure?
I think
No,
It was
Not
two,
like
it
this.
was
It had 2
2
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the other thing was it was built out of natural materials, stone and
Yeah.
wood as opposed to dark blue
Yeah.
siding.
This looks more like a metal building almost, yeah.
To me, it's not a question of whether you like the style of construction, that's fine, whatever, I don't think there's ever the zoning ordinances, a place to get into that kind of, that kind of regulation, but maybe it's something to do with, we have to regulate these, accessory buildings on these small lots or something. I mean, to me, that's what makes that one so bad, not the house. Great big tall hangar built between the house and the road. I mean, maybe you need to, that's why I said I just think we need to look at the ordinance, maybe, I don't know. Maybe, we have to regulate the size of an accessory building on a small lot. I don't think we ever dreamed that somebody would do something like that. I don't know.
So you could have different setbacks for accessory buildings, you could have size requirements, there's no size requirement for it.
Proportionate to the main structure in size and height, maybe, I don't know, something, gotta be something. But anyway.
That was all my discussion.
Does the planning commission want the office to do something about that?
So let's go ahead and schedule a meeting for next month, and whenever you get us some information on that, that's fine.
Okay.
But like I said, I don't know.
Is that something that the office can look into?
We can, I think, again, you're looking at some, if you want to restrict the size, and you have to remember, it's not just one property, you're restricting it either throughout the watershed or throughout a district, so you would be saying, okay, because of this one, we're gonna restrict everybody in town center at the least, you have to do it by district or everybody, and then you just say accessory buildings are limited in size. I think I'm always careful about doing things that are ambiguous. You want to have it clear cut. So
You could also somehow look at whether it be a special exception or variance, so at least they each get looked at and critiqued.
well, I don't think you want to make accessory buildings a special exception, or we'd have every shed having to go to the board.
Well,
of
I
Appeals.
don't necessarily mean
Not
that,
important.
but.
No.
And variances just deal when you're asking for a breaking of the rules.
Right.
So that would be, if we said we're going to set a minimum size for an accessory building, then people could ask for variances from that size, but they'd have to show hardship and difficulty to make it bigger.
Anything else?
It could be maybe regulated on percentages or something like that, which would cause us to do a lot of math.
I don't know if you trust us. We don't want to have to do too much hard work
That's
over
what you
there.
have computers and calculators.
No, in Montgomery County, they used to do some, or DC, and more in particular, there was, for stormwater management and building, you could only, cover a percentage of the lot. So if you buy a small lot, you can't build Taj Mahal on it and run it out to the
Edges.
cent like that.
We could look around and try to see if we can find anything in any other zoning ordinances where other jurisdictions might have come up with things for regulation of accessory.
Mhm.
See if there's something to do. I don't know what the answer is. I'm going to have to problem, I can't take it.
Yeah, zoning's not perfect. You always have loopholes that people can exploit, and I think you have to balance, do you react to that to keep it from happening again, or is it, if it's an anomaly, are you going to infringe on everybody else's rights for something that may never happen again? And that's a hard balance to find. I think that's where we're always trying to find that sweet spot, but often it's one way or the other. We're too regulatory, or we're letting stuff go, and then by the time we realize it, kind of cat's out of the bag, and you're looking at things that you wished you would have come up with before.
It could be different too in town center between commercial and residential. You know, commercial you want right up at the edge, maybe not residential, you know.
I was trying to think along that lines too, somehow if you take especially something that had been historically a commercial use, and now you decided to change it to residential use, but you're still, they're not benefiting from any grandfather setbacks of that.
No. Those lots were all
That's why
reconfigured.
That's where we all threw in the weeds.
Okay, all in, all done. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
You got